Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Dave Thompson, and I'd like to welcome you back to our Civil Human Bible Study. I'm a civil human minister, so what that means is that I focus my ministry on building human peace and common ground. And as a civil human minister, the way that I'm approaching the scriptures today is first as a human. I just want to look at these and as a human, try to find those teachings in these scriptures that can be applied, I feel, across the board to all humans. And the second thing is that I want to be civil in the way that I do that. I want to respect those shared basic human needs that we all have. The need to believe our own creed, the need to be independent from control, to vote for those who will control us, to intimately love someone, and to live and let live. So as we go about this Bible study, those are the ways that I'm going to do that. Let's go ahead and jump into Matthew chapter 13, 51 and 52. Last episode, we talked about the kingdom of heaven being a net that captures a fish of every kind. And so it was a real wonderful communication of every human being belonging to these ideas and these virtues. So we're starting in 51 and ending in 52. And this is 13:51. Jesus said to them, "Have you understood all these things?" They said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he said to them, "Therefore, every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out of his treasure things new and old." That seems like a pretty short couple verses. And actually, I read them yesterday and sort of highlighted them, but in thinking about it and looking at these verses again, I felt that there was a significant and really important message right here today that Jesus was sharing 2,000 years ago to the Jewish audience who was before him. So I'd like to walk through some of the language aspects so we can understand what Jesus is talking about and what its application is today, because I really believe that this message of all messages is significant, especially here and now in our world today. So let's go ahead and talk about some of those verses in the passage today. The first thing is that you may have heard Jesus refer to a scribe. So back then in this day and age, it's important to remember that their history, their culture, didn't have a whole lot of people who could read and write. Right today, most of us, actually, a greater majority of Americans, and actually, around the world, can read and write in several different languages, depending on where we're at, and some actually can write in different languages. That's not something that is common to them. They don't have books or the ability to print. Everything has to be handwritten and using ink and probably a papyrus or an animal skin of some sort. They have to be educated, which there are no universities back in this time. There's no really instructors. You have to actually sit as an apprentice under somebody who knows how to read and write. And it would have been difficult back then to do so, because it meant that you had to leave your family and to go and study with this individual. And leaving a family meant that they would not have somebody who was important in their family to do the work, to help build their family, to establish their assets and their property. So it was a big and significant thing to go to be educated in reading and writing. And so these individuals during this time, the scribes, they became pretty important in basically the whole kingdom of the Jewish people. And the reason for that is because the law was written. Their law for their culture was basically, a long list of basic rules about God. This is a theocracy. So their politic, their nation is one that follows the laws of God. And so these individuals, the scribes, would know all about them, could read them all, and could write them all. And so they were commonly used to teach these laws to the people. So what in the world is Jesus saying here? When he says that those scribes who become disciples of the kingdom of heaven, this word disciple we've talked about before. It's like a student. This word and the way it's used right here is this idea of a scribe going to school or being trained or being instructed on this new concept. You remember the kingdom of heaven means this idea of virtues that Jesus is talking about, this new society and way of living. then I want to bring forth this concept of new and old, right? He says, a scribe who is educated in the things of the kingdom of heaven will bring forth new ideas and old treasures as well. New treasures and old treasures. And what does he mean by that? So this Greek word new, right? It means new in quality. It means fresh. It means something that has not been seen before, or it's been put in a new way. And the word old here, it doesn't have any negative connotations. Oftentimes we can use ancient or old to be sort of a negative jibe at something. But in this case, it simply means ancient, in terms of a time long ago. So when Jesus is basically suggesting, look, these scribes who are educated in the law and all the things that were written, 1,000 years ago and instructed to the people in a world that for them looked actually very different. He's saying that these people have a value, that all of their education matters. And this is the key part. And this is how it bridges over to our world here and today. The things that they were taught, these scribes, these were the virtues of the kingdom of heaven already. Things like peacemaking, things like compassion, humility, and self-restraint, those virtues that Jesus has been talking about being the foundation of this new way of thinking and living, these are the same virtues that these scribes have learned. The problem, and where it breaks down, is in its application, the rules. Right, the scribes are using rules based upon those virtues that are, almost 1,000 years old, and for a society and a circumstance that looked different than it did in their day right then. And so Jesus is suggesting, look, these virtues transfer, the rules change though. The way that we apply them and the methods that we use to operate our society, these change around the virtues. The virtues don't change, but their application does. And so Jesus is saying these old things are still valuable, they are still treasure, and these new things are also treasure and also valuable to us. So how in the world does it transfer to us here and now, right? Today, what does this mean? It's a 2,000-year-old document. Is there anything that we can pull from it? Yes, there is. The idea of new and old is more vital and more important today than it really has ever been. We are in a changing society right now, a society that changes at the speed of light. It used to be that, every new generation, there might be some significant inventions or step forwards in our development as humans. But these days, it's every single year, if that, sometimes even 10 minutes. We have these significant leaps and bounds. The ability to land on Mars, the ability to fight different kinds of cancer, the ability to use the internet to have video around the world. Even in my lifetime, our phones, having them in our hand and having the culmination of human knowledge right in our hands is something no human in history has ever had before. The ability to be seen by everybody and to talk to everybody at the same time around the world has never been experienced by our species before. And the culmination and the gathering of all of our different worldviews in one place where we can't escape them. They're on Facebook, they're in the people around us, in our cul-de-sac, in our suburbs. The worldviews that we used to essentially as a culture all hold together for the most part are now a hodgepodge and a variety of different fundamental ways of looking at the world. So how in the world do we figure out what rules to follow, right? I mean, if I'm Christian and my neighbor is Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist, how in the world do we find those central ways to at least get along, at least operate peacefully so we can all get the most out of our life in trying to be happy while not impacting as much as possible our neighbor? I think this passage is super important on this point. And that is the virtues even back then 2,000 years ago are valuable today. Peacemaking, compassion, self-restraint, humility, these virtues have the same impact on humanity as they did 2,000 years ago. And why? Because we are exactly the same creature. Our circumstances have changed. Our world has changed dramatically, but we are still the same human being. And so these virtues are treasurable, are valuable to us today. The rules have to change. We have got to use these virtues to develop new rules that will allow us to use these virtues in our current society, in our current culture. These virtues, because we never change, are foundational. We as human beings are the same back then because we do the same stupid things. I do the same stupid things. I do the same, commit the same errors that they did back in that day. And I need peace. I need compassion. I need somebody to show self-restraint. I need somebody to forgive. I need people to extol the virtues that I need to give to them. I hope this has been helpful for you today. I know this has provided me a considerable amount of reflection and important words for me to consider, that these virtues are something that I have to learn to adopt and to live. And I would like to encourage you to do the same, to think about those ways that you can apply these virtues in your own lives. I want to say thank you for watching. I want to say thank you for being a part of this Bible study. Your participation, your reflections have meant the world to me because you've given me things to think about and you've given me the opportunity to learn from you. And I would ask to provide comments below this video to give other people your thoughts and your reflections, because that's how we learn. And until tomorrow, live at noon, I want to say to you that I love you. And I hope that you choose to love yourself. It's the only love that we have any control over in this world. And now I invite you to join me as we go about the rest of our day loving our neighbors the same way. Thank you.